So I'm a graphic designer by trade.
We do have an aging population, but we also have lots and lots of chronic disease.
He was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumour.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Simon Phillips, host of Leading the Field, the podcast where I interview some amazing people who are out there making a difference in the lives of others. I'm really excited about today's guest. Sarah Chalice from whocaresforcarers.com has written an amazing book called Who Cares? Say hello to the people watching and the people listening to this wherever they are right now.
Hello, Simon. Thank you so much for having me on and about all things carers, which I know is something deep in your heart as well with work that you've done previously. So thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you end up doing the work you do today? But what were the origins?
Thank you for that, Simon. Yes. So you probably heard that John Lennon phrase, life happens when you're making other plans. Mm-hmm. And that definitely happened for me when it came to caring, because I don't anybody out there goes, right, that's what I want to be doing with my life, caring for a loved one. Life just happens. And, you know, I'd been traveling. So I want to go back 20 years ago. I was like, when is my life going to start, really? Was it really going to start? And I think we all feel that at times. And that was it. I applied for jobs. And within a few weeks, I was working in London and I was in the NatWest Tower in the design team. So I'm a graphic designer by trade. That's what I did. And that is when I met Neil, who was this big, gregarious guy. He was our print supplier to our graphic design team. And we started dating and we were having a great time. But what happened next was only within 6 weeks of going out, he'd been having these side effects kind of like down his arm. He'd been having pins and needles and he ended up in hospital and he was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumour. So I said, don't worry, Neil, I'm there for you, not realising what that would mean for me for the next number of years, you know. And I remember the stress and the burden that caused for me at the time, trying to keep Neil going. He was back and forth from hospital having chemotherapy. He'd had a huge operation and survived that. For me, at one time I had 4 twitches in my face. The stress that was, you know, I was carrying, trying to put on that brave face, as many of us do as carers, and not then looking after myself, trying to people please, being there for everybody else. And for me, you know, in the end, I just had enough. I needed to be there for Neil. We'd got married by then, and I was looking after Neil, and I wanted that quality time with him for however long he had. So then I was working from home as a freelance designer whilst I was continuing to care for Neil. And within a few years of being at home caring for Neil, he had a stroke and he ended up in a hospital bed in our living room, unable to speak. And it was 24/7 nursing care. And that's what really scuppered me. And like most carers, up to 70% of carers fall mentally or physically unwell.
What format did the illness take with you, Sarah?
Okay, well, I think mentally I wasn't in a good place. I remember going for a carer's assessment. If anybody out there is a carer, do go and get an assessment. And I remember at that particular time, going and seeing this young man, Australian dude, who was sat there and he said to me, so, you know, what do you want? And I was then really angry because I said, what have you possibly got that could help me care for a terminally ill husband? And he said, well, why don't you just tell me what's been happening? So then it literally opened up this pressure that had been loaded for so long. And through tears and snot bubbles, I delivered the story of what had happened, of caring for Neil all these years. And I had no idea that was inside of me, how it'd been building up and making me so ill and making me very low. And when I left there, I realised I had to make changes.
What came first? Was it the mentality of I'm only here to serve others, or was it the need to serve others and then it becomes a way of life?
So it's a really interesting point. I think it was a need for me personally. I knew that Neil might have limited time, and I said, don't worry, I'm there for you. And then I put all my eggs in one basket. I poured my love into him to a point where I didn't even go home for a year to my parents in Cambridgeshire. And then my grandfather died during that time. And I realised I haven't been back to see them because I put all my love into Neil. I was very upset and very angry about that. And I thought, I've got to be there for all of those that I love, as well as myself. But we become a great tunnel vision that can happen so strongly when you're caring for somebody who might have limited time.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. We're going to take a quick break so that people can look after themselves right now and grab themselves either a comfort break or a cup of tea and come back in just a few moments. Welcome back. I'm here with the wonderful Sarah Chalice. We've been talking about Sarah's experience, which I'd love to say was unique to her, because that would mean that there's not a big problem on our hands at the moment in society. But unfortunately, Sarah's experience is replicated right across the country. In fact, right across the world in many respects, because we do have an aging population, but we also have lots and lots of chronic disease and struggling healthcare systems to actually cope with all of those problems. You've brought us up to the point where you felt the change internally. You did some work on yourself to remember who you are and your value in the world, as well as the caring activities you were doing that you personally were important. So what happened next then?
Okay, well, recognizing and realizing I've fallen over all these hurdles through life, of all these things that I'd learned. When we go through challenges, we really do learn, don't we? And with that, I started to write my book, Who Cares? How to Care for Yourself Whilst Caring for a Loved One, because most of us don't. That's why too many of us end up falling ill. And I looked at all the issues that had happened for me over those 13 years of caring for Neil, and I realised there'd been a lot. And within the book also there's not just those solutions, that insights, but also the psychology, simple psychology that we can all use. Things like, oh my God, carers need this. And also strategies to help them. And a bit of science as well about telomeres. Really important for all of us who are caring. And with that, I then started to give talks for carers almost as soon as it came out for Carers Week, and ended up on This Morning on ITV. And the book won an award a couple of years ago with the People's Book Prize, which is fantastic because it's bigging up and making people aware how important the work for carers is.
Sarah, I can only just thank you on behalf of all the carers that I know you've already impacted. But if anybody listening would like to get in touch or find out more, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Thank you, Simon. So with my website, it is www.whocares, and it's a number 4 for carers.com, whocaresforcarers.com. And on there, I've got my online course, which you can just finish in your own time. The book's on there as well. If you click on that link, you can find me on Amazon as well, the book, Who Cares? How to Care for Yourself Whilst Caring for a Loved One. There's a lot of kind of over to you at the back of each chapter to say, what is it that you can do different? So all that sort of thing is at the back. Yes, and please do connect. You can sign up for my monthly newsletter.
Here on Leading the Field, we've got a playlist of songs that our guests have shared, the ones that inspired them, the ones that kept them going, whatever the story is. So which one would you like to add to the playlist?
Oh, bless you, Simon. Okay, so I'm going to be greedy. I'm sorry. I'm going to pick 2 because I know Charlie did, because I don't know, it's kind of soft and squidgy as well, because I do like a jump up and down, and I am a mosh pit chick as well. I like Foo Fighters and Killers and stuff. So I love Dakota by Stereophonics. That's a big kind of anthem, and the great line in there, you make me feel like the one, which is very empowering, especially when I think about caring for Neil. But the one that really resonates with me, now I'm an author and I'm getting that message out there and I'm noticing it make a difference, it is Natasha Bedingfield. I don't know any of her other songs, but the song Unwritten, I think, has got fantastic lyrics. She says, open up that dirty window, live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. So yeah, thank you.
Love it. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks again for being my guest here today and for sharing all of those personal insights, but also your real understanding and knowledge about what people can do for themselves, but also what they can do for each other. So that's been a real pleasure to spend time with you today.
Bless you. Thank you so much, Simon. Take care.
This was Leading the Field with Simon Phillips and my special guest, Sarah Chalice. We'll be back next week. Until then, have a great week. Take care.